I knew it. She's not always that friendly, so.
That's funny. Hi, welcome back to StoryHive On Location Kelowna. I'm Rob O'Day, and we are coming back with another live episode from Kelowna with support brought to you by TELUS STORYHIVE. Today, we are sitting in Kelowna with Shannon Lester, an incredible artist who has a really unique color palette that I am absolutely obsessed with. Thank you for having me and sitting down. I appreciate
Thanks so much
your
for
time.
coming. Yeah, this is going to be so fun filming at home.
Yes, I'm really excited because we get to sit with your beautiful pieces, which is now I get to see them up close and not online. It's the size difference is quite amazing.
A lot of people say my work looks better in person, and it's a nice compliment, but I don't know. Sometimes it doesn't feel like a compliment. Like, I guess on social media, like it's like that big.
Yeah, and that's kind of the thing. You don't get to see the detail and the amount of work.
Yeah.
Let's start off with who you are for the people, where you're from, and how you got into being a painter.
Oh, well. Well, I guess you already introduced me. I'm Shannon. So I was born in Vancouver, and both my parents are Newfoundlanders, so when I was about 5, we moved back to Newfoundland, and that's where I grew up. And I've always been an artist, ever since I was like, my first words were color, color, color. As a child, I would draw on the walls, and art has always been my obsession from day one, pretty much. And then in high school, I really started to take it seriously because I got a lot of praise and attention for my art growing up. And I had some really amazing teachers that really encouraged me and put me into advanced placement art. And then my journey kind of brought me to the Okanagan when I was like 17. My dad was living here, so I moved here. And I've been here ever since, on and off. I lived all over. I went to Japan for 6 years and lived all over Canada, but this is home now, the Okanagan.
That's really good. Japan.
Yeah.
How was that?
I spent most of my 20s in Osaka. It was pretty amazing. It's where I kind of got to experience life as an adult, and it was incredible. Yeah, I went there to teach English for a year, and I ended up staying for 6 years. So,
Wow.
Yeah, it was quite an amazing experience.
Did that have any influence on, like, you do a lot of natural, earthly, and oceanic themes. Did that, being in Japan, give you a different perspective to paint?
Yeah, I think my experiences in Japan as a foreigner, and it was my 20s, so it was my formative years. So I think it really shaped me as a person because I absorbed so much of Japanese culture and became really integrated into the society there, and it definitely shaped me. And I'm sure it continues to influence my art. When I was in Japan, of course, the spaces are smaller, so all my art became a lot smaller, but I didn't stop creating when I was there. So
It's really cool. And then to come from the East Coast where you're surrounded by oceans, and to go to Vancouver and be born from Vancouver to go to ocean to ocean.
It's coast to coast.
It kind of seems like it was appropriate for where your artwork is nowadays.
Yeah, I've always had to be close to water. Definitely in Japan, it's an island, so the ocean is a big part of the culture there. And same with Newfoundland and Vancouver. And now, at least in Kelowna, I have the lake. Yeah, water is definitely a big topic in my art and my life, for sure.
What led you to being, like, as an artist, you usually go through a bunch of different stages trying to figure out what you're good at and what you like to do. What was it that made you click that was like oceans and mythical creatures?
Well, it's always been that. When I was a teenager, I've always had like really intense visions and just like these surreal fantasies of things that I wanted to create, but I didn't have the technical skill to do it. So I would paint my visions and I'd get frustrated because they didn't look like what I saw in my head. So one of my biggest goals as an artist has been to build up the like technical painting ability to be like, okay, I envision this, I could paint it. Definitely very influenced by surrealism, but yeah, the whole mythology and mysticism and spirituality and nature and all those things that are in my art now, they've been there all along. But just become much better at actually translating that into paint nowadays.
I love that. Painting has always been, like I was saying before, if the camera was on, is it's always something that I wanted to do, but I'm terrible at. And to see people who can take a vision from their mind and put it onto a canvas is it's an enigma to me. I'm great at putting my feelings and emotions onto through music onto into a recording. So to make it a visual thing is very I find a very hard skill to hone in on.
It is. I mean, it's to because I aim for realism. I'm not interested in being a photorealist, but I want to convey my visions realistically so people can connect to them. I've had to learn how to paint everything from scratch, and I went to art school for 6 years, but in art school I didn't learn any of the techniques or skills that I have now as a painter. It was all about experimentation and opening your mind and all those fun things, and I had a great time, but I consider myself to be mostly self-taught with painting because I use more traditional techniques that are not considered to be contemporary now in art schools. It's more abstraction and conceptual art and blah, blah, blah. But yeah, it's taken a lot of... One thing is I'm very prolific. I don't care how good the painting is. I'm going to keep painting. And to me, and that's something I translate to my students, is you're going to make a lot of really crappy art in order to get to the point where you can make good art. Like, you have to actually practice and build your skills. You have to be drawing constantly. You have to be studying. I've studied the human form. I've studied nature. And it's not something that has happened overnight. Like I said, I've been painting for 25 years. So it is a great feeling now that it's like, okay, I have a vision. I know I can make that into a painting now. And now I know that it never has to be exactly as you envision it. Things will always be translated differently when you're creating, but that's part of the creative process. And yeah, it's a good feeling.
I was gonna ask, do you find it hard to, or was there ever a point where it was hard to let go of that, to let the artwork become what it is without having that like preconception of what you want it to be?
I think that's what art school was. It was all about letting go of my creative vision in order to just experiment and open myself up to different techniques and different mediums and different ways of thinking. And now, like, I think the biggest thing that stops people from creating is that, critical side of the brain that says, this is crap, this isn't good enough. I don't have that filter. I'm like, let's make it. And if it's not good enough, let's make it better. So, did that answer your question? I went
Yeah,
on.
yeah. So during school, you figured out that release of control over your artwork was a benefit.
Well, I feel like I have a lot of control. Like, I will sketch out my vision pretty precisely before I paint it. And sometimes I'll even make digital mock-ups and stuff so I could really, hone in on what I want to paint. But having a little bit of looseness with that allows for more creativity, because I don't want my art to be entirely technical, because there's a lot of, technique involved in taking a sketch and turning it into a painting. But I just learned that perfect balance of just having that little bit of looseness and letting go of the outcome, which I wish I was better at doing in my personal life, but letting go of the outcome with my art allows, it just flows better that way. Because if you're just like, this isn't looking what I want it to look like, and you just get so frustrated, then that's just stopping you. So I just keep creating. And I've created hundreds and hundreds of paintings, and some of them are good, and some of them are horrible, and some of them are great, So it's just part of the process.
It's one thing I'm really guilty for what I'm painting is I can see what I want, but I can't translate it like you were saying, and it's because I don't have the technical skills. So I eventually just stopped going into any painting with an idea and just using sponges to create texture and blending. And the paintings that I do, they're not like, I don't know how to describe them. It's quite literally just blending of colors. but they look really nice. But
And
it
shark.
took me so long to get to a place where I was like, hey, that's what I do, because I'm not good at this, I'm not good at that, I'm not good at sketching. And it kind of sounds like you have almost an engineer architect mind with the way that you set up your paintings, where you're creating your draft, you like you were saying, a 3D scale almost, and then you get the project. So it's kind of, it's cool to see that you have a very scientific and spiritual mind behind the way you're going about things.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to be said with just being free and creating, and I do that too. Like, I'll make a painting with no intention behind it as well. That's important. But yeah, like I said, I have very elaborate visions of things that I want to paint, and to be able to translate them properly, there is a lot of technical aspects, and I try not to get too caught up in that. There's always a point where you have to just let the creativity flow and put aside that side of the brain. But yeah, it's art is not just about being free and creative, and there's also a lot of hard work that's involved. And yeah, that's the one thing that I really respect about a lot of artists and art history is, we all have creativity, but you got to put in the hours. And I mean, back in the day, to create an oil painting took a lot longer than now. The amount of time that it takes me to work with acrylics, which dry much faster. So, and we have other technology available to us now as well that can help. So, yeah, there's a balance between the technical and the creative for sure.
You've worked with oil as well, I assume. With
Yeah, and I love oil. I love the way they blend, and my painting style is based on oil techniques, and I try to achieve the same effects as oil paintings with acrylics because I just don't have the patience. And I'm so creative that if I'm just like working on one piece for months, it would probably just drive me insane, or I wouldn't be satisfied. I mean, if I had a huge studio work, I work on numerous oil paintings at the same time, I probably would. And I do want to get back into more oils. I just also don't like all the solvents and mineral spirits and all the cleaning, and they're messy. And if I get back into a more industrial studio rather than my home studio, I'd probably get back into oils again too.
I never thought of that, the cleanup aspect towards doing.
Yeah, I mean, oil takes forever to dry, and I'm very messy, and I'm always getting paint everywhere. So as soon as I start working with oils, it's like getting all over my house, and it's not a good situation. So sticking with acrylics for now, but definitely I lean towards traditional oil painting techniques for sure.
It's cool that you're the transition from oil to acrylic, and then having to figure out how to do the same techniques.
Yeah, I've developed a lot of my own techniques because acrylics dry so fast you can't blend. I've had to find ways around that, and there's many different ways to achieve, similar effects to oils with acrylic. So it's just been a matter of doing it and trial and error and finding what works best for me over many, many years.
Have you ever done murals?
No, well, no, I don't think I have, but I did a little something when I was a teenager, but I don't think that counts. But yeah, that's also, I feel like, very technical to do a mural, because you're basically projecting an image on a giant wall and reproducing it. It's not quite the same, but I'd be open to it. I love murals. I think they're amazing, and we should have them everywhere. There's some really great murals in Kelowna actually these days.
I'd love to see one, like a mural that you did, just because, especially here. I think it would be cool if you could do like a, I don't want to say an Ogopogo themed one, but
somebody sent me, there was like a Big White was asking for somebody to do a mural up there, but it's not a paid thing, which I'm not that into. It was like you get accommodation.
Fair enough.
I mean, it'd be cool to put a mural up at Big White. Like, I paint Bigfoot a lot. That might be fun up there, but I don't know. I didn't apply for it, so I'm like, I need to make money too.
Yeah, and that's the thing, as murals are. I have a friend she did murals for a while, Andrene, and...
Andrene Shepherd?
Yes, she's one of my really good friends.
Really?
Yes.
She's also one of my really good friends.
That's awesome. Yeah, her and Dave I've known for years. They were actually on last season.
Well,
but
crazy.
Andrene was describing the ones that she did and the amount of physical work behind it.
Yeah,
And
it
then
just
I'm like,
seems like
seems almost too much.
like to me, like I put hours, weeks, months into my paintings that are like this scale. I just can't imagine the amount of work that goes into murals. But that's when people, you know, they really simplify and they block out colors and they become more graphic. And I'm not really interested in the whole graphic kind of direction for art for me personally.
Fair enough.
But I mean, definitely it's on my list. I'd love to see my art as a mural. Maybe get somebody else to do the work.
Right.
Or you need a team.
Yeah.
I saw there's this artist that does these massive murals that takes over the entire sides of like tall buildings, and they do these giant figures, and they're very surreal and beautiful. I forget their name, but I saw their work in Toronto, and I was like, that'd be cool.
That scale would be mind blowing. With being an artist, up to this day, what has been the biggest challenge that you faced?
Well, being an artist, there's always the usual financial challenges because, number one, it's an expensive pastime, expensive hobby, or whatever you want to call it, passion. And we all have to pay the rent. So that's been a barrier, but luckily I've been pretty fortunate to be able to sell my art for a long time. And I have various different creative outlets that I've been able to make money from, including teaching, and I'm also a drag performer, and an event producer, so I've been producing events and shows for years, and so managed to rise up above the financial burdens, because like every artist, I've had every job you can imagine, which is good. It's good to get life experience, and because as an artist, it's very easy to become a hermit, so I think that's probably been the biggest one. I've also been a little bit challenged by how conservative people can be when it comes to art. I have no filter. I never censor myself. I draw and paint whatever I want. And then it's not always considered suitable to be shown in public, which is tricky, but I've also found ways around that. Yeah, those are probably the main things.
I think you brought up a really good point too, where sometimes this kind of why I like being a musician, as like you were saying, sometimes you're painting things that may be considered controversial, or I mean, art is art. You can't really judge it for what it is, right? Unless it's detrimental to somebody, in my mind,
Well,
right?
yeah, and the thing is, I understand how the word family friendly has been thrown at me so many times in my life, and I'm so sick of it, because I'm very family friendly. I love my little nieces. I love my family. And of course I want to protect children and everything, but when it comes to going into a gallery, and there's a bit of a double standard, like female nudes tend to be more accepted in our society, and then if it's a male nude, it's like, oh, like that's too much. So
which is understandable. I can see how that could be
people
a
are
hindrance for
very
somebody.
focused on
Yeah.
genitalia.
Yeah, and I think that's just people in general. It can be a little weird in the sense of what they accept as right as wrong. We live in a weird world right now where art shouldn't be lumped into a political view in my mind. And that's where I like being an artist, because especially as a musician, and being a musician yourself, I feel it's our duty to be able to say the things that no one wants to say.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
That's really the blessing of being an artist. Like we get to explore any topic, including very dark topics, but in a very safe and positive and creative way. Like
Exactly.
that's the beauty of art. So
I I appreciate what you do, even if it's, I don't want to say it's for a select fan base of art lovers, but I mean, look at it aside from what the content is, and look at the skill factor. And it's incredible what you're painting.
Thank you.
Like, we had to change the camera angle because there's an amazing piece back there, but we can't show it on camera. But it's a beautiful piece.
Yeah, and I mean, I have been lucky that people recognize my skill level and like the emotion behind my art and the intent, so that they have relinquished their conservatism to be like, okay, your art is amazing. We're going to show it anyways. And
I think it's a
I
big
feel good
testament.
that I've been able to, fully be myself as an artist in such a small kind of conservative town as Kelowna.
It can be very conservative, and I feel that what you're doing is needed.
I've always felt that. People have always said to me is like, oh, well, what you do with the edgy art and the drag, like you should be in a bigger city like Vancouver or Toronto, like you're not going to fit in here. And I'm like, this is my home.
Yeah, no.
I'm going to keep creating my art here. And people have always appreciated that because they're like, wow, like I've never seen anything like this in Kelowna. And people have always thanked me for just one thing about myself, whether you like it or not, I've always just been myself.
And that's the
And
best
I
way to
have
be.
no other way of being. I just don't know how to do it any other way. So people have always shown gratitude to me for that, and that's been nice.
You mentioned that you also host events and that you do drag, and I think that that's an amazing creative outlet, and I think it's really fun and entertaining to watch. We've had Frida Wales at one of our festivals before, and at Decimate they have another crew who is out of Alberta somewhere. I want to say Calgary, just because Decimate's out of there. That they always play at the metal festival. So most of the metal festivals have a section where they have drag,
That's so cool.
and I really
That's
love
what
it.
I love about metal. It's a very inclusive community. Yeah. And actually, like where I started drag was amazing because we started doing drag in Japan.
Oh wow!
I met my friend Mikey. He's an Australian filmmaker and photographer, and this was like 15 years ago, 16 maybe now. He was dating a Japanese drag queen at the time, and we were like both artists and looking for a way to get our art out there in Japan. And we're like, why don't we start a drag performance art duo? And we did, and it was called Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. And our first performance was in this underground club in Kyoto, and you had to actually enter through the subway. But it was this very established drag show there called Diamonds Are Forever. And we did like very performance art, kind of dark, avant-garde, experimental drag, and people loved it. And we just ended up performing all over Japan, and it was amazing. And then I came back to Canada, to Kelowna, to do my master's. And there was no drag in Kelowna then, no scene. So we created one here. And we started producing our own shows, and just kind of took off from there. And I've been doing drag for 15 years now. My main focus is painting nowadays, though, and trying to focus more on music as well. There's only so many things you could do at once.
Yes, especially being creative, you kind of have to pick and choose which ones.
I go through periods where it's like, okay, this 6 months I'm going to focus on this, and now, it's cycles.
With the painting, you recently do you still have a gallery downtown, or has that finished?
So I was the resident artist at Studio on Water. I've taken a step back now just to focus on my own business and my own art, because I was helping a lot with the gallery in the first couple years being open.
Okay.
Teaching and working in there and just helping with everything really, events. And so I had a great time there, sold a lot of art, had some exhibitions, had successful classes. But recently I've just been like, okay, I've given a lot to that space. Now I need to come back and focus on my own business again, because I've been self-employed for a very long time. So I was just feeling a little bit too, I don't know, tied up in the gallery. So, but yeah, it was an amazing experience. Studio on Water, it's still downtown. It's all local artists and artisans in there, and it's a good space.
What does it feel like to get? For me, as a musician, I always feel like when I have my album finished, when the product is in my hand, it's kind of what it would be like to be a painter and have your art in a gallery. How does that feel to like be put in a gallery and be a resident?
Well, it's prior to that. So you mentioned Andrene. We actually had our first kind of solo show together at the Lake Country Art Gallery.
Okay.
It was just at the beginning of the pandemic, and it was called Sea of Love, because she also does a lot of underwater work as well. And that was an amazing feeling, because it was my first paid Carfax exhibition where I was getting paid to show my art, which, as it should be, in a proper gallery, and it was quite a great experience. So that was the first, like, I mean, I've exhibited my art for years and years in various different places, Alternator Gallery, Rotary Center, and around Canada and Japan and stuff like that. But that exhibit was very significant. And then one of my recent goals has been to get represented by a local commercial gallery.
Okay.
Because you got to pay your bills, and you know, people. The wonderful thing is, I paint whatever I want, but you know, people resonate with it and they want to buy it. So, being represented by the studio on water was actually a wonderful experience. It felt great. I'm very grateful for that time I had there, and it was like checked off something on my list to find a gallery to represent me. And it's a small space, so you know, I was lucky to be featured there for quite a while, and yeah, and it was definitely a highlight for me.
That's awesome. Do you plan, because you're stepping away and now you're working on your own direction and your own business again? Because I can understand
Well,
how...
it's also my own direction in my art too. That's it. That's the one thing that I will say was a slight negative of being in that space, because I was in there on display, publicly painting, showing my art all the time, very public space and connected to the Delta Hotel. So the perception of the public and the owner of the gallery did influence what I was creating a little bit.
Okay.
And I did have to censor myself a bit. So I just, which is fine, you do that for different situations, but for the creativity to truly flow, I don't want anybody else's, you know, perceptions being pushed on what I should create, and I don't want censorship to be something I think about at all. So that's my main focus right now, is I'm creating a new body of work that's just purely creative, coming 100% from myself. And the plan is I'm going to create a new exhibition proposal for the next couple of years, and hopefully expand to show my work in other places, across Canada, maybe internationally as well. So
when you're going about that, how do you go about getting the funding and the help to do so?
Well, I haven't received any external funding. I'm very self-sufficient. You know, I sell my art. I've started doing private lessons in my studio, which I've used to do, and I'm still getting booked for events as well. So I have income. But yeah, a lot of people always tell me about grants, and I'm like, yeah, I'll apply for one day. But
I was curious. I feel like, because there's a huge world of grants out there, especially for the arts industry in Canada. And one thing that was kind of bouncing around my head last year when I was speaking with a lot of painters is we put on these music events and music festivals, but it'd be cool to see an art festival locally.
yeah, well,
I don't know if we have one.
we
or
have.
not.
I mean, the closest thing that I think of is Base Coast, where it's very much like art installations all throughout the woods, and it's on my list to apply. I'm bad with applying for things. But yeah, I love the idea of art and music combining, and that's really a focus right now as well with my current work, and with diving back into music again.
Have you ever done live painting with music in the background, like to bands?
Yeah, yes, actually, I did some live painting with live music as well at the studio, and yeah, I think it's a great combination. Whenever I have an exhibition and reception, I always hire a local musician because art and music is just so perfect together. It complements each other so well.
It's true. My buddy Brent Steele, he coined chaos art. And he does these really unique abstract pieces, but it's all based around what he's listening to. So he strictly listens to music while he's painting, and he just like lets the body go. And like,
oh my God,
some of them are so cool.
If there was a way to like look into the paint and see all of the music, the sounds that went into, because I mean, I don't paint without music ever. It's very rare, and the music definitely influences the art. So maybe some future technology will find a way to dig out the sounds that are in the work.
I've never thought of that before. That is a really cool concept of the because like emotion, you feel the emotion going into it, but what about the emotion that was setting the emotion?
Yeah.
It is a really cool
I mean, I
concept.
create playlists that go along with my, moods of what I'm working on and stuff like that as well. So it's
That's
all
awesome.
connected.
While you're diving back into music, do you find that the transition from release of painting is a different feeling than a release of music?
Well, I mean, with music, I've always been a bedroom musician, but I mean, ever since I was a kid, I took piano and guitar lessons, and I started producing electronic music when I was in Japan. But I went through a long period the past 10 years or so where music was just, I would pick up the guitar every now and then, write a song, or play covers every day. But now I'm diving fully back into the production. So right now I'm a student. I'm learning Ableton 12, and it's more so like spending the hours to watch the tutorials, to make shit. And, I'm a student right now. So it's a different feeling, but it's exciting. It's very exciting. I'm just like so eager to get to that place where I could actually make a proper, fully produced song again. So it's baby steps. So I've been going deep, just like kind of obsessed with watching videos about synthesizers and beat making and just like dissecting electronic music and all that stuff. So,
Yeah.
but student mode right now.
Do you, now that you're diving back into music, into the production aspect, do you feel like you're listening to music differently?
So differently. Oh my God. It's taken music to a new level for me. Like I could hear, how everything is made, and it's just so interesting getting behind the like science of like sound design. And yeah. And I recently got some really good headphones and some new speakers, so I've really been really listening to music.
Just vibing.
Yeah.
That's awesome. With your future and where you're working towards now, do you ever see yourself? You mentioned bringing art across Canada would be a fun thing to do. Could you potentially do a touring art show?
I did.
Oh, cool.
So one year, when was this? It was, I don't remember. It was years ago, but I created a kind of a naughty surrealist card game, and I had it produced, and I wanted to promote it and sell it across Canada. So, and also promote my art. So I planned a cross Canada tour. I had a vehicle at the time, and a buddy came along, and we brought our camping gear, and we just stopped in cities all across Canada, and I looked into the galleries and places that might sell my game and tried to promote my art as we went. I called it the Alien Art Invasion. I was doing a lot of alien-inspired art at the time, I think. Yeah, and I drove from Kelowna to Toronto, and that was a really fun experience, just to see Canada too.
So your art, what you've painted has evolved. Has there ever been a point where you were doing landscapes or anything? Or has it always been...
Well, I've never been interested in like traditional landscapes. I find them incredibly boring. And I find with whole Canadian art thing, it's always landscape focused, which to me speaks to the conservatism of the art world, but it's also like, I'm very inspired by nature, but there's so much more to nature than just a pretty image. And that's what I want to convey with my art. But in order to be able to do that, if I want to paint a mystical landscape, I still need to know how to paint a landscape. So I have been working hard to be able to do that. And the past couple of years, I have been teaching like to beginners on nature painting. So by teaching, I've improved my own landscape painting as well. So I have done it. I just find it very boring. I'll paint a landscape and then I have to put a Bigfoot or like some kind of mystical creature in it. Otherwise, it's just not doing it for me.
I love that. I asked because Andrene was mentioning that she tries to steer clear of doing landscapes because of that. But what she started doing is adding the graffiti and the trash into it.
Yeah, you got to find a way to
like,
make it creative.
like, yeah.
You got to make it creative because like there's so many artists, they all do the same thing. And I'm like, what's the point? It's so boring. Like, why does everybody just have to emulate everybody else, you know?
It's one thing I love about the expression of painting. And you do find there's so many forms of painting. First of all, that there are great abstract painters and there are people who paint abstract. You know what I mean? And I find that same thing with musicians. There's people who play music and there's people who are musicians who understand everything and the spiritual aspect behind the art form they're creating, because
I think that's so important.
it is. And I think a lot of people don't realize that, like, as creatives, it's a natural thing. We know it's there, but to try and like put that into words of how it feels when you're actually creating there isn't an English word for it. There isn't. Like, I wish there was, but I'll have to learn a different language to figure out if there's a word for it. Because even like, for me, like you being in Japan, there's so many cultural aspects that I can imagine absorbed in all the different, from painting, music, with the drag, like to be in a country with such deep roots.
That was what blew me away, because, you know, our history as Canada is very short, not, you know, with full respect to the Indigenous history, but our history, you know, as a colonized country is very short compared to the extremely long history of Japanese culture. And they are very special in that they've worked very hard to preserve their traditions and their culture. And that blew me away, the history, because, you know, I grew up in Newfoundland, where there is a unique culture in Canada, but it doesn't have deep roots. I mean, the roots are maybe coming from the UK mostly, but its own identity is fairly young, and there's a lack of a lot of things, a lack of spirituality. And, the biggest thing I learned from Japan was respect. They just have such a culture of respect, respecting other people, respecting nature. And that's something when I came back to Canada, I was like, we don't have that, you know? And it's just ingrained into who they are, bowing to each other, you know, like the way they speak to each other and the reverence they have for the seasons and just so many different things that are built into their culture. So yeah, it blew my mind how amazing and rich. Like, I spent 6 years in Japan and I explored a lot, but I only scratched the surface of that place. It's amazing. Just the fact that it's such a small series of islands, like, but 4 times as many people than Canada in that space, and that's just so much more history. I mean, the Indigenous history of Canada goes just as long, obviously, and I'm not disregarding that. I'm just talking about, you know, how we identify nowadays as a country. So
I've said it. You brought up a point that I've said for a long time: is that North America is the teenager of the world.
Yeah, and
we are
America,
so young.
The really bratty teenager.
Yeah, like our culture, like there's buildings that are 4 times, that have stood 4 times longer than our culture and country has even been around. And I think that's why North America is kind of so crazy, is because it is that we're trying to figure out what works for North America,
I've
right?
heard that a lot. Yeah, I mean, it's true. You know, we're definitely we're still figuring things out for sure.
Yeah, we take baby steps, and I think that everywhere else is kind of just like that. Culture is ingrained in them for so long that it kind of
so deeply rooted.
Yeah, and we were speaking with Winona Paul last season, and she's an Indigenous artist who's drawing her own versions of what people would call Haida. So she's doing Okanagan Haida art, and she had a Haida artist come from Haida and was like, she's like, I'm not Haida at all, and they were like, well, you're making the local art for the Indigenous people here. She's creating that, and to think that it's taken, you know, like to see a local young artist too, because she's, I want to say, in her 20s, 30s, creating what could potentially be hundreds of years down the road, what is known as the art of our region, is kind of a mind-blowing concept.
Gives me chills, yeah.
Right, and that's the cult. We're building that culture.
That's the thing. It's beautiful seeing Indigenous people reclaiming their culture. And I mean, I grew up in Newfoundland, which has a very dark history. Like, the Indigenous people were largely killed.
Yeah.
So I grew up with that history, and it's always been very important to me to acknowledge that. But it is beautiful to see that there's a reawakening of Indigenous culture and pride. Like, I have so many Indigenous friends who are, so connected to their history now, which is how it should be. And they're recreating their own culture in new ways as well, because it's a different world now. So
I think it's kind of cool to be, like, being the creatives of this generation. We get to be the ones who define the art.
yeah, I think about that sometimes. I'm like, the next generation, are they going to think that art created by AI is like their art? Like, is that going to be the new thing?
It's a weird concept to think about.
Yeah, because I mean, it keeps evolving what we call art and music and culture, and now technology is taking over, which I don't think is a bad thing at all. But
That's cool, because you're the first artist that I've spoke with that have said that technology taking over the art industry isn't
well,
super detrimental.
I'm as old school as you could get.
Mm-hmm.
I draw and I paint. I make things with my hands. But I believe that technology can and is be like a very valuable tool, and it's created from us, and it's just a matter of how we use it and what we do with it. Like, there's been points where I was a little afraid, and of course, like these people using AI to steal other artists' styles and make money from it, that's wrong. But I don't believe that AI is inherently evil or wrong. It's just a matter of how we use it, what we do with it. I think actually the future will be us integrating technology even more in it, if we can do it in a very positive way. Like, it has amazing potential. So I've evolved recently in my opinions about this, that I don't think it's what we make it. It could be a very horrible thing. It could end up being Terminator, but it could also end up being like a beautiful rebirth of, our culture. And so we'll see what we do with it.
No, it's a really good point that it could be the technological renaissance for artists if we were to embrace it in the proper way.
I believe it is, and it will be. There's no reason why we can't use technology to help us enhance what we do with our hands. And like, the beauty of AI is that it has access to all of the information that we've put out there. It still comes from us. I still believe that it comes from us, unless it's coming from some alien planet or something.
Right.
But yeah, like, I've really evolved into a place where I think it has great potential. Like, I'll go in the app and get it to make a little AI song and listen to it and be like, oh, that's cool, and maybe use it as inspiration in the back of my mind. Like, I wouldn't create an AI song and put it out there into the world, but I just think of it as another tool. Like, used to be Photoshop, now it's AI.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was...
I'm grounded in the fact that I've never been a fan of digital art, to be honest, but that's why I've built my skills. 20 plus years of painting, drawing, nonstop. What I make is by hand, so I'm not afraid of technology.
That's a great way to say it. That's one thing I say is you can create a program and it can do all these amazing things other than feel our emotion.
Yeah. Well, I've interacted with AI a bit, and it has such a wonderful understanding and appreciation of art. And the thing I've realized is that it will never be able to make art like us. It can mimic, it could reproduce, it could even create its own art, but it will never be able to make human art because it's not human. And that's what makes art so special, is that it truly expresses an individual, so nothing to fear, in my opinion.
No, it's a good way to see it, because there is, if you break it down, the art industry in human and AI, it's kind of like the mainstream and the underground.
Yeah.
And it's like, you'll never be able to take away from the underground how amazing it is.
Yeah, and it's like the more commercial realms, like digital graphic design. Like, it probably really sucks for graphic designers now. But for me, someone who makes things with my hands...
I never thought about a graphic designer as
Well,
challenge
now
of
it's all
that.
being taken over by AI.
Yeah.
You get AI to make your ad in 2 seconds.
Yeah,
Why
it's
would you
pretty
pay a
crazy.
graphic designer?
Yeah.
But you can't get AI to create a physical painting. I mean, maybe you can soon with new robot painters. I don't know, but
As a teacher, getting to inspire the next generation, what is that like? Do you find that this younger generation has the same creative juices, or because I've been curious, like the tablet generation, are they just as creative as the ones who had the imagination playing with toys growing up?
yeah, I don't think the tablet itself would affect the
Just more or less
actual
the term that generation
individuals.
of.
Yeah, well, like I've never been. There is a newer generation of artists who will create their art using their computer, and I could never connect to that because even when I look at it, I'm like, it doesn't look the same as a painting to me. It might look more perfect in some ways, but it's not a painting. But I don't know because most of my students tend to be more mature. That I don't have a lot of younger students. They're more
Okay.
people who are my age or older who are looking to learn art or improve their skills.
Okay, so you're seeing an older no, I don't want to say an older, but our age and higher versus a younger generation coming in.
Yeah, I mean, I have some younger students too, and they're just and some of them are very creative. Yeah, I can't really comment on that too much because I haven't seen it too much.
Because I wonder if, like, us growing up playing with toys and having that imagination of creating these worlds and these characters in our heads, I wonder if, because there's less kids playing with toys nowadays, if that creative imagination aspect is not being taken away, but it's being turned into a, like you said, like a digital art form, and that's what's going to become like like almost a fear for me is like, is that digital artwork, not AI artwork, but the easy accessibility of digital artwork and to create artwork on tablets and computers and stuff ever going to take away from somebody wanting to pick up paint if that's all they've known? That's a fear for me sometimes, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's just the creative will, that people want to make things with their hands, and things that are handmade are still very much appreciated. And we could all tell the difference. To me, there's a huge difference between hand-drawn animation versus computer animation. To me, computer animation looks very artificial. Hand-drawn just has this beautiful warmth. So much more work involved. But I love like all the traditional animation, and I'm less as excited about all the digital stuff. There's a difference. I don't know. Well, I definitely think all of the technology is going to very much take over and change the world, for sure. And it's just a matter of what we do with it. And yeah, I would definitely suggest to people to ground themselves in doing things with their hands in the real world rather than just always staring at a screen or a phone, But I still think those tools are valuable.
It's a good way to look at it. With your artwork moving forward and the new series that you're working on, having no vision for it and you're just letting yourself be creative, do you think that, I don't know how to phrase this, I don't want to say it'd be the best work that you've done, but do you think it'll bring you back to that initial love of the creativity again?
It already has. I had almost a creative death last month where I suddenly was like, I wanted to bring my art to a new level and go in a different direction and just push myself forward to evolve. And it brought me to a dark place where it's like, I don't know what's next. But then it came, and it was, rather than it being something completely new, it was an evolution of everything I've done over the past 10 plus years with my art, because I've been producing so much. I started going back into everything I created, and I just started to draw from all of that, and then it birthed something new. So I'm actually really very excited where I'm. This is a great time for you to be here because, I've already planned out dozens of new paintings.
I love it.
It's just a matter of me doing them now. So yeah, I've been putting in the hours.
That's wicked. And we will be diving into watching Shannon do some painting right after this. I've got, I think, one more question, and then we can get that all set up.
Okay.
If there was any advice that you would give aspiring painters who are trying to start their career, whether it be they want to make a living off of it or they're just trying to get into it as a hobby, what advice would you give them?
I would give them the same advice that one of my professors, Jim Callan, he's an incredible local artist, gave me, and it's the most simple advice I've ever gotten, and it's just don't stop creating, keep on drawing, keep on painting, no matter what, where you are in your life, whether it's your main focus or not, continue drawing and painting and developing your skills and doing it, regardless of how good it is, keep doing it, and that will bring you to the right place. And I always had his voice in my head saying, just keep doing it. It doesn't matter whether it's good or not. It doesn't matter whether you're a professional artist at this stage in your life. Just keep doing it. Like the whole don't give up thing is very, very relevant. And it's what got me to here today, because, I look back on some of my paintings from years ago, and they were definitely not as good as I thought they were then. But I see the evolution, and I see where I have success as an artist. I'm a professional artist. I couldn't say that when I was in my 20s, but I could say it now. So it's just a matter, you have to put in the work. You have to have that discipline to actually pursue it, because it's a very hard path. Being an artist is not a job that's accepted by society. It's not something you could go to school for and then be like, okay, here's your job. It doesn't work like that. You have to be so creative, so resourceful, and have a lot of stamina. And I definitely wouldn't recommend to anybody pursuing a career as an artist, but for me, I never had any choice. It's who I am. But yeah, the main piece of advice is to keep creating.
It's a beautiful message, because it is. We were talking to Darian Ray yesterday, a hip hop artist, who says that most people will give up within the first year, or 80%. So 80 people out of 100 will give up, and then there's 20 left, and within the next 2 years, another 15 of those are going to be down. So just not giving up on yourself is a very valuable lesson I think you can take from any aspect.
And also value the creative journey that you're on. Don't value the success you have in the world based on that. Don't value how people respond to it. Value your own development. That is key.
That is a very good point, because a lot of people will follow.
They'll be like, oh, I'm not famous yet. Oh, I'm not making money yet. My art must be shit. No, you have to evolve. You have to keep creating. It's your value as an artist isn't determined by others.
Yeah, it is very true, and that's one thing I think us as creatives are naturally prone to is self-doubt.
Yeah, it comes with the territory,
It does, and I think it's like, I think it also stems that most creatives have a form of depression, so that they fall into these cycles, like you were saying. You had a creative death the other month or a couple weeks ago, and I find I do that quite often.
Yeah,
where I
try never to go to that place, but I had to this time. Like, sorry.
No, 100%, because you have to sometimes, right? Like you brought up a valuable point. Like you have to kind of sometimes hit rock bottom to be able to be.
Sometimes you gotta die to be reborn. It's just the way it is.
It is very true and very valuable. So I love that, and to see, hopefully, that advice will help somebody who's coming in, because I find there's a lot more people coming into their creative mind now in later life than earlier in life, which is kind of a beautiful thing to see.
Yeah. Yeah, and they're still just have just as much self-doubt and insecurity, but the key is to be able to let go too. To let go of your expectations of what your art is going to be and how people are going to perceive it. Just enjoy the process.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Well, I want to enjoy the process and dive into some of your new pieces. So we're going to end this stream. I'm going to get this swept over to the monopod, and we're going to dive into some art. So we'll be right back.